this is a great opportunity for me to share the Ghana story. This is not about Newmont, but this is about how Ghana is basically taking care of the shortfalls that we are currently having and the role that renewables could play in this era. In 20 minutes, I'll try as much as possible to share with you what we are going through and what can potentially happen based on what we have here. I'll walk you through a little bit about Newmont because I have to talk a little bit about the company that actually feeds me. I'll also give you a little perspective from the African picture, what currently the status is in Ghana, the impact of our current load shedding experience, why we are having that, and then also where I think that renewable will sit. But before I go on, let me share a little bit about why I am here. Based on the description that you were given by Adrian, I sit at a very, I would say, intricate position, and it gives me the opportunity to see a lot, so I can share from that perspective. I deal with the deregulated arms of electricity in Ghana, that is the generators, the transmitters, the distribution channel, the regulators, and then also the mining industry. And I also serve on the committee that rations power in the country as a result of this. So I see all different aspects. I also interact with companies that come to pitch renewables to the mining industry as well as the government. So I see all different facets of presentations. And so some of this presentation is to help all of us so that we can speak the language that can make you some money. Before I continue, let me give you some precautionary information on my company, because I may say some things that please don't take it to the bank, because you do that at your own risk, okay? This is going to be an audience participatory presentation. You pray for me that I don't sneeze, and I will continue with the presentation. Because I ended up in a room that was for smokers, so I'm kind of having a little hard time this morning. Newmont is a big mining company. It's the second largest gold producer. Newmont Ghana Gold is a subsidiary of Newmont Corporation. I worked for Newmont Corporation for a long time in the United States before I relocated to Ghana. So I also bring some experience of the Western world to things that are happening. Because from the Western world, we speak differently. Our expectations are different when it comes to things of planning, things of energy, and when we want things to be done. So you have to have somebody who has the dual translation, who can translate things both ways. So it's very necessary to have that component as part of your repertoire. Newmont is 94 years old, so it has a lot of experience. It's also the only gold company as part of the companies that form the S&P 500 index. Its sustainability efforts have not gone unnoticed, and it has become a founding member of that index since 2007. Worldwide, we have about 43,000 employees, and also it has been named as one of the best corporate citizens. That's my advert for my company, okay? Now, let's get to the meat of the presentation. Before we talk about Ghana, we need to see where Ghana sits in the whole structure. When I picked up the newspaper yesterday when I came here, I realized that there's also load shedding going on in this country, which has a lot more resources than Ghana does. But on a numerical strength, I saw load shedding in the 600 megawatts. Ghana is also shedding load about 600 megawatts. But if you look at the base that Ghana has about 3,000 megawatts, and they're shedding that much. So it has a severe impact on the country. People have described the sub-Saharan condition, whereby agencies like the International Energy Agency, they're talking about the fact that there's not enough power to take care of the citizenry of the various countries. That's true. There is a gentleman, Charles Ampofo, who's an African, who is building a power center in the Philippines to try to solve a problem that we cannot solve here. He describes the present precarious state of power or electricity as not the end, but it's going to get worse. People like these are trying to tell us something. We are seeing just the beginning of it. In Ghana, the installed capacity, as this graph shows you, you have hydro, which has a high component, and the thermal pieces form the other part. Renewable is very little. We've just begun. So this is an opportunity for investors and my brethren here who are interested in a renewable energy area to try to make inroads. So the significant reduction that we have in the power area is mainly coming from these two sectors. There has been an increased demand for more thermal installations, but not from the renewable area. Because, one, it's very difficult for those who have already been in the field to move and make a change, especially in the mining area, which is a very conservative business arena, are set up by cost structures that are very difficult to deviate from. So when you talk about renewables, people kind of wonder, what are you talking about? There is a need to expand in the renewable area. The government of today has set up the very necessary infrastructure, feed-in tariff systems to help the renewable industry to have a foothold in Ghana. It's very difficult to find what the current capacity is because we have an election coming up next year, and this is a highly politicized issue. So all what I can present to you is the installed capacity, but I can tell you that the available capacity is far less than that. To tell you or show you the seriousness of how things are in Ghana, I would just like us to examine some very important statements. This is by the president of the country. We used to have a ministry responsible for energy and power, and because of the sensitivity and the importance of this, that ministry has been split into two. One just for power. The second, the new Minister of Power finds this very important, so critical, that he's put his own job on the line. That if by January 1, 2016, he doesn't solve the power problem, he loses his job. And everybody's watching. The Volta River Authority is the mainstay, that's the biggest generation unit in the country. They are now exploring different means because hydro has been the mainstay and introduction of thermal plants, but they are looking seriously at introducing renewables. So for developers, business developers who are in the audience, I encourage you to take a look at what they're doing, and there is a fit and there is a need for you. The three first statements are external, internal to Ghana. Externally, this is also being recognized that currently the fabric of the society is changing, and we are having serious consequences that is affecting social life in the country. Before I continue, let me find out from the audience, how many of you watch soccer, football, sports on TV? How many? By show of hands. Okay? And how many of you have your spouses not too happy when you're doing that because they need you to do something else? Including me. Okay. That has changed due to load shedding in Ghana. Because we have very high load shed, now we have time to spend time with the family because you don't watch TV as much, which is good. So wives are having their husbands back to spend time and do the home chores, okay? On another interesting note, you find people spending more time in their cars because of the air conditioning. Because there's more air conditioning in the car than in the house, okay? So they spend more time sitting in there trying to feel cool. Because there is not that much electricity around, you have people eating fresh foods because you don't cook the food and keep it in the refrigerator for a long time. So there's a positive side to it, okay? These are things that are actually changing the way we manage electricity. It's the thinking that's changing. So even though from a numerical standpoint, we are shedding load which is monstrous, but it's causing the citizenry to think, to rethink on how power is used. From the mining sector, it's causing a lot of problems because even though we would like to have more electricity, help the communities, we are not missionaries. We are there to make money. But at the same time, it's having a negative impact on the community that we're living in. First of all, there's less revenue coming to the power companies because we are shedding load 33% of the time, which is huge. And this 33% is experienced either by you working so many days and shutting your plant for the rest of the time. And you know mining companies, you cannot afford to do that. Or you curtail power through and you only produce you do your production on the allocated amount of time. This means less revenue also going to the government. Taxes, royalties, less. We also have to spend high amount of money to try to find alternative fuel. And at this stage of the game, we are talking about diesel. Now in Ghana, almost all the big mining companies are on the grid. Unlike the other place, they are all on the grid. Except the small scale mines where you see a lot of generators working. So for the big mining companies, their cost structure does not include the huge diesel component, but now it has to be added to it. So we're getting into generator rentals, and that's not a funny business. It's pretty expensive. Because there is less revenue going to the government, less revenue going to the mining companies, and more fixed costs being attained, the cost structure is not helpful, and this is also causing investment in both existing and new projects to be delayed. Our company, my company, for example, there are some expansion projects that are going to require more power, but because you don't know where the power is going to come from, you kind of holding on, and the gold price today doesn't really help in that regard, but that's what we're doing. And then lastly, on this subject, Because you don't have enough money, the community is also suffering. Less power, less money, so the community that you are supposed to be investing and then replenishing is also suffering. Why do we have this load shedding going on in Ghana? First is funds. Resources are kind of hard to come by, just like everywhere else. Ghana has limited fuel supply. We have gas fields, but the gas fields are just getting onto stream, but the gas in there is not enough. We've depended so much on hydropower for a very long time, and it's catching up with us. We draw down the hydropower when there's less fuel, and so the hydropower level has gone down completely, and we are in a cycle where there is drought in that area, so that compounds the fact that you have less fuel, you have less efficient machinery, which is not available, and so that is causing, I would say, a perfect storm right now for us. That's why you have the 33%. Also, there is an electrification project going on that is exposing and increasing the demand. Because remember, politics has also got something to do with this. The more houses that we get on the grid, the more votes that you get, even though you realize that you're increasing the demand and the supply is limited, but that part of the equation is not resolved by politicians. We plan to add more capacity, but unfortunately schedules and things like that don't work as planned. That's why I say in that side of the world, project management skills or project management things don't work the way we want them to. And then also existing plants, they are not as available as you want them to be. So with all these coming to play, you have a pretty bad situation. What do we do currently to try to resolve this? As I said earlier, we are getting into more of generator rental business. So those of you who are in the generator rental business, turn your attention to Ghana and see if you can make some business over there. We collaborate among ourselves, the mining companies, to try and see how best we can share power. So even though you are limited, the days that I'm off, you will be running. So if you have some planned maintenance that can be done, we can switch and share. So that is, we are taking advantage of that. We are also modifying our operations so that we can be able to deliver on our plans. So either we are modifying our milling plans or the mine plans, taking advantage of grids so that we can work to deliver the production by taking advantage of the grids that we have, by using high grade, and also trying to improve the efficiency of how we do work. Okay. There is a mad rush to look at alternatives, but I can tell you right off the bat, there is more education that needs to happen from both the suppliers as well as the mining companies. So there is a need for us to be speaking the same language. Also, because this is highly political, the mining companies have increased their presence on the national discussion fronts so that they can be heard. Because mining, in the context of other social things, is viewed as, you know, you foreign companies come here, take our natural resources and get out. Now that we're having power problems, why do we have to consider you? Take care of yourselves. So the mining companies have to really get engaged to show the contribution mining is doing to the economy so that we can be heard and indirectly get a seat at the table. When it comes to renewable energy, and you look in Ghana, you have a double vision. It's not clear. You don't see what it's all about. It's not being heard. And I believe that the language that is being spoken by the providers is not being received. Because what you hear, you see when I'm in the ministries, is we have a solution for you. We can help you. But it's your solution. It's not the solution. So basically, the companies are talking past the mining companies. So my statement or my personal opinion is, let's present solutions that integrate the current supply of power, however limited, because there is this reluctance of the mining companies trying to listen to anything new without taking consideration of what is existing, because that is their cost structure. Anything new is viewed as foreign, anything new is viewed as a distraction, so you have a lot of companies, IPPs, talking renewables that is not getting through. The infrastructure of allowing renewable companies to get in is there. The government has allowed IPPs, everything is there, just that the language that is being spoken is slightly different. So let's modify what we have that we are trying to offer. And the reason I say this here, this is what I see lacking from all the interactions I'm having with the different parts of the electricity business, is we're speaking different language and people are not hearing us. So in order to take this to the non-fossil arena, I have a couple of recommendations. And this is my last slide. There are vendors, manufacturers, producers who want to sell, but they believe that in that part of the world, the way to do it is to get to the very high top, the people in power, and sell the idea, and it will cascade down. That's not correct. Secondly, we talk as technical people, but the folks who make the decisions are not technical. So let's modify the language. And also, we don't have people who are experts in storage, battery storage, and all these things in the mining companies. We don't have experts. There are people who are miners, that's their core competency. So let us try and include them in the solutions that is being designed so that they can see that it's a solution from them, for them, rather than from you, for you. Mining companies can also be encouraged to see the value, so there's more education that has to come with your offering. The government and regulators in our area are being encouraged to provide incentives, discount programs, so that it can entice the mining companies and other users to listen to the message of the renewables. Because it's very difficult to break through if there is nothing that it's going to make it easy for me to transition. Lastly, investors, sponsors, demand this to happen because it will really ease your entry into markets like Ghana. I know that the Ghana Energy Commission, which is the technical regulator, is very open to getting a lot of renewable energy companies in there. And I can tell you there are about close to 300 entries or licenses have already been given. Let's take advantage of that. And I believe that in about 5 years from now, the story will be different. The 0% of installed capacity that we saw coming from the renewables will change. Currently, there is a solar plant that is delivering about 2 megawatts, which is nothing. It can be increased. There is talk of other kinds of renewables in Ghana, but let's follow it up and educate the decision makers properly. Remember, as I said, they do not speak your language. So let's modify the language first so that we can get through. That is the key thing. And those of us who are already in the system can help to make that happen. Thank you very much.